This tends to be a busy time of year for home sales.
Yeah, getting a mortgage is a critical part of this process.
And joining us now to talk about how Liberty Bank can help you with that and other money concerns is Kurt Johnson. He is the bank's retail lending sales manager. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is a time where a lot of people are looking for houses, maybe wondering if they even buying a first home. Do you think more people can buy homes than they realize? I think young people especially think, oh, I'm not ready, or it would take so much more.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's correct. There's been numerous studies and surveys out there where people still think it takes 20% to put down in a house in order to buy a property, whether it's your first time, your second, third, fourth. It's amazing how much misinformation is out there. And the reality is there's down payment assistance programs, there are grant programs available in the area. You can put as little as 3% down, sometimes as little as nothing, depending on the area that you're buying in. There's special products sometimes available in Community Reinvestment Act areas as well. So the important thing I always tell people is to engage a loan officer as early on in the process as you can, someone local who really knows the market, knows what's going on in their communities. Then they can also work very closely with their real estate partners and their attorneys, so you actually have a team sort of in your corner helping you with that purchase.
And this is before you start looking at a house. You should go to the loan officer, find out what you can afford.
Yep. Absolutely, because doing that also, not only is it going to help you understand exactly what are out there for available options, but it's also going to help avoid any potential snags or unpleasant surprises that could pop up in the process. Not to imply that the process itself is necessarily difficult, but you should know what you're getting into, and it's always best to be prepared.
Yeah, they can give you the exact payment of what you're going to be paying, which is good to know.
From a budgeting standpoint, absolutely. And a lot of times, back in the old days, I think before the housing crisis, a lot of times people would just very blindly get into the mortgage buying or the house buying process rather, and not really understand what it was that they were getting into, and they would get themselves in over their head.
A lot of people in Connecticut are complaining that their house values have gone down, haven't quite gotten back to where they would like them, but it's a great time to buy because there are so many bargains out there. What's your advice for them?
Well, I would say to have another look at possibly where home values are in their current town. You mentioned it's a great time to buy. Mortgage interest rates have now dipped again. They were always still hovering around some pretty historic lows, but it's still...
What are they about right now?
I would say, roughly 4%, give or take.
Lower again.
Depending on the day, and depending on what happens in the market and so forth. But it's a remarkable time, and that's historically just fantastic. And anyone would tell you, big picture, it's a great time to get in if you can.
There's people also who are wanting to move up to that next house. Maybe their family's bigger, but they're worried because the values have gone down on their first house. Are there solutions for that? Getting out of that first house and still going to the second house, even though values have dipped?
Yeah, it's always that's when you want to sit down and talk to a loan officer to find out what your options are. Someone local that may understand what the market is and how you may be able to get out of that house that you're in if you'd like to upgrade. Again, I think everyone's situation is a little bit different, so understanding the details and the nuances are again half the battle.
Kurt, what is the timing when you have an offer accepted on a house to the time that you'll actually be able to get that mortgage all done and be able to buy it, usually?
It depends. I would say, things can get done in as quickly as a couple weeks. As long as, 30 days, sometimes longer. Kind of depends on the transaction itself. And some of the moving parts involved in the transaction. And again, I think a lot comes down to being prepared getting into it, as we were saying before. And that can save a lot of time.
And that's a good thing that people know that they can go and see you in advance, so no surprises. Thank you so much for your time.
Kurt Johnson, thank you very much.
So if all you've heard today has you thinking, I should see how Liberty Bank might be able to help me, then you can head to the bank's website. It is liberty-bank.com. A lot of times you can get a lot of information right there.